US President Joe Biden has announced his intent to appoint Indian American Richard Verma as the member of his Intelligence Advisory Board, the White House said. The President's Intelligence Advisory Board is an independent element within his executive office. Verma is currently the General Counsel and Head of Global Public Policy for MasterCard. In his role, he oversees companies' law and policy functions in the United States and around the world. He previously served as US Ambassador to India, where he led one of the largest US diplomatic missions and championed historic progress in the bilateral ties, the White House said on Wednesday. A former Assistant Secretary of State and the former National Security Advisor to the Senate Majority Leader, Verma is a veteran of US Air Force and the recipient of numerous military awards and civilian decorations, including Meritorious Service Medal and the State Department's Distinguished Service Award, it said. Verma is a senior fellow at Harvard University's Belfair Center for Science and International Affairs, and he holds multiple academic degrees, including a doctorate from Georgetown University and a law degree from American University. The President's Intelligence Advisory Board exists exclusively to assist the President by providing an independent source of advice on the effectiveness with which the intelligence community is meeting the nation's intelligence need and the vigor and the insight with which the community plans for the future. Around the world, Muslims are being targeted with violence. US President Joe Biden said on Monday, asserting that Muslims make America stronger every single day, even as they face real challenges and threats in the society that they live in. At a White House reception to celebrate Eid ul Fitr, Biden said he has appointed the first Muslim to serve as ambassador at large for international religious freedom. It's especially important because today, around the world, we are seeing so many Muslims being targeted with violence. No one should discriminate against oppressed or be oppressed for their religious beliefs, he said to applause from the select gathering at the White House. Arooj Aftab, a Pakistani vocalist and composer, was one of the speakers at the event along with First Lady Jill Biden and Dr. Talib M. Sharif, Imam of Masjid Muhammad, known as Nation's Mosque in Washington, D.C. Today, we also remember all those who are not able to celebrate this holiday, including Uyghurs and Rohingyas, and all those who are facing famine, violence, conflict, and disease, Biden said, and honor the signs of hope and progress towards the world we want to see, including the ceasefire, which allowed the people in Yemen to honor Ramadan and celebrate Eid in peace for the first time in 6 years, he added. Biden said, making US more equitable, more inclusive for Muslim Americans is an essential part of the enduring work to form the more perfect union. We are the only nation in all the history of the world that is being organized not based on religion, race, ethnicity, geography, but on an idea. Think about that, an idea, he added. Voters go to the polls in Britain on Thursday in a midterm test for the Conservative government that could determine Prime Minister Boris Johnson's future. The local election results will be seen as a barometer of support for Johnson's Conservatives nationally, as well as an indicator of whether the opposition Labour Party poses a serious threat. Johnson, 57, won a landslide general election victory in December 2019 on a promise to break the years of political deadlock and deliver Brexit, the country's divisive department, from the European Union. But his position has looked increasingly fragile because of damaging claims about lockdown breaking parties at Downing Street and an inflationary surge that is squeezing voters' income. A police investigation last month saw him become the first British Prime Minister to be fined for breaking the law while in office. Irate Tory MPs, mindful of public outrage at double standards and denials, had looked set to force a no confidence vote in his leadership in January. But Russia's February invasion of Ukraine, during which Johnson has shown hawkish support for President Volodymyr Zelensky, took the heat out of any mutiny. A drooping for Johnson's stories on Thursday, though, could revive calls for him to go to bed in a new leader for the next general election, which is due by 2024. Private Gate, however, has not proved the key issues for leaders. What's going to get folks a lot is the cost of living. Food is going up, energy is going up, said one voter. Pope Francis said in an interview published Tuesday that he requested a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin over Ukraine while comparing the scale of the bloodshed to Rwanda's genocide. The pontiff told Italy's newspaper that he had sent a message to Putin around 20 days into the conflict saying that I was willing to go to Moscow. We have not yet received a response and we are still insisting, though I fear that Putin cannot and does not want to have this meeting at this time, Francis said. But how is it possible to stop such brutality? 25 years ago, we lived through the same thing with Rwanda, he said. About 8 lakh people were killed between April and July 1994 as the extremist Hutu regime tried to wipe out Rwanda's Tutsi minority in one of the 20th century's biggest massacres. The Pope has repeatedly called for peace in Ukraine and denounced a cruel and senseless war without mentioning Putin or Moscow by name. I'm not going to Kiev for now. I feel I shouldn't go. I have to go to Moscow first. I have to meet Putin first, he said. Francis also said Russian Orthodox Patriarch Kirill, a close Putin ally, cannot become Putin's altar boy. Dialogue with Orthodox Church, which separated from Catholic Church in 1054, is a priority of Francis' pontificate. But since Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24, the Pope's call for peace have contrasted with Kirill's defense of Putin's fight against Russia's external and internal enemies. Russian President Vladimir Putin might undergo cancer surgery and will temporarily hand over power to Hardline Security Council head and former Federal Security Service Commander Nikolai Patrushev, claimed international media reports. The anticipated surgery and recovery are unlikely to incapacitate the president for a short time. Last month, Putin was seen tightly gripping a desk during his meeting with defense minister. The incident has now raised questions about president's health. According to a report by the New York Post, doctors have reportedly suggested Putin to undergo the operation. The report cited a Telegram channel purportedly run by a former Russian Foreign Intelligence Service Lieutenant General. In recent times, Putin has reportedly exhibited uncharacteristically fidgety behavior in public and a sicky appearance, following which the president has been rumored to suffer from cancer and a host of other serious maladies, including Parkinson's disease. We know that Putin signaled to Patrushev that he considers him to be practically his only trusted ally and friend in the government, the Post claimed. Additionally, the president promised that if his health takes a turn for the worse, actual control of the country will temporarily pass into Petrushev's hands. Patrushev is the secretary of Russia's Security Council, which is an influential body that answers directly to Putin and issues guidance on military and security issues within Russia. Most of the council's power is vested in Patrushev, who is widely seen as a staunch Putin ally. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has stirred up a fresh controversy by comparing Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky with German dictator Adolf Hitler. He said both Zelensky and Hitler were Nazis and they had Jewish blood in them. Israel's Foreign Minister Yair Lapid slammed Russian Foreign Minister, saying that his comments were unforgivable, outrageous, and a historical mistake. Jews do not murder themselves in the Holocaust. The lowest level of racism against Jews is to accuse Jews themselves of anti Semitism, he said. Protesting the statements, Israel has now summoned the Russian in their country to seek an explanation. The Center for Strategic Communications and Information Security under the Ministry of Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine quoted Lavrov as saying, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky's Jewishness does not negate his Nazism. Adolf Hitler also had Jewish blood. As Moscow claims that it has evacuated several people, including children, from Ukraine to Russia, a report has claimed that nearly 2 lakh children were forcibly deported to Russia. The Kyiv Independent tweeted, Russia forcibly deports 1.1 million Ukrainians to Russia, including nearly 2 lakh children. Russia's Ministry of Defense stated that since February 24, Ukrainians have been forcibly deported to Russia from the Russian-occupied Donbass. More than 11,500 people, including 1,847 children, were transported from Ukraine into Russia on Monday without the participation of Kyiv's authorities, Russia's defense ministry said. That number includes evacuations from Russian-backed breakaway region of Ukraine, the so-called Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic, which Russia recognized as independent just before launching its February 24th invasion. Russia says the people have been evacuated at their own request, while Ukraine has said Moscow has forcefully deported thousands of people to Russia since the war's beginning. Moscow calls its actions in Ukraine a special operation to demilitarize and denazify its neighbor. Ukraine and West say Russia launched an unprovoked war of aggression. On Monday, the first civilians to be evacuated from a giant steel plant in the besieged port of Mariupol arrived in the Ukrainian-held city of Zaporizhia. As a part of United Nations and International Committee of the Red Cross operation coordinated with Ukraine and Russia. Since February 24th, nearly 2 lakh children and 1.1 million people have been evacuated from Ukraine into Russia, the defense ministry said. Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa Friday declared a state of emergency for the second time in 5 weeks, giving security forces sweeping powers as a nationwide strike demanding his resignation brought the country to a standstill. A spokesman from the president said he invoked the tough laws to ensure public order after shops closed and public transportation was halted Friday by unions blaming him for the unprecedented economic crisis which has ignited weeks of unrest. Earlier Friday, police used tear gas and water cannon to disperse students attempting to storm the national parliament demanding Rajapaksa resign. The emergency gives sweeping powers to security forces to arrest and detain suspects for long periods without judicial supervision. It also allows the deployment of troops to maintain law and order in addition to police. The president used his executive powers to invoke emergency regulations to ensure the maintenance of essential services and public order, the spokesman said. He said the laws will go into effect from midnight Friday. Beleaguered Rajapaksa had declared an earlier state of emergency on April 1, a day after thousands of protesters attempted to storm his private home in the capital. That emergency was allowed to lapse on April 14, but protests have escalated since then. The new emergency declaration came as thousands of demonstrators remained outside Rajapaksa's seafront office, where they have been protesting since April 9, and smaller groups tried to storm homes of other key government politicians. The 85,000 strong police force had stepped up security for all ruling party legislators, but they were stretched to the limit and had asked the security forces to reinforce them. As humans plan to return to the moon, their machine counterparts have already been surveying the lunar surface, creating its topography and geological features, and shedding light on even the permanently dark regions. The biggest breakthrough led by India's Chandrayaan mission was the discovery of water on the moon in 2008, nearly 14 years after the first detection. We now know where this water came from. It came from Earth. A new study led by scientists from the University of Alaska Fairbanks Geophysical Institute hints that water on the moon could be the result of the hydrogen and oxygen ions escaping from Earth's upper atmosphere and combining on the moon. The research adds to a vast pool of studies underway to identify the source of water at the moon's north and south poles. The detection of water reserves on the airless world of moon will be of critical use as astronauts from US, Europe and China plan to arrive on the surface and build bases to push forward towards Mars. As NASA's Artemis team plans to build a base camp on the moon's south pole, the water ions that originated many eons ago on Earth can be used in astronauts' life support system. The new research estimates that moon could be hiding nearly 3,500 cubic kilometers of permafrost subsurface liquid water created from ions that escaped Earth's atmosphere. The estimates have been made by taking into consideration the lowest volume of ions escaping Earth and 1% reaching the moon. The study suggests that these unique locations serve as potential resource utilization sites for future landing exploration and habitats. Russia has no intention of deploying tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine, a foreign ministry spokesman said on Friday, a day after Moscow's top diplomat in the US chided Western official for targeting it with baseless accusations. Russia firmly abides by the principle that there can be no victors in a nuclear war and it must not be unleashed. Alexei Zaitsev said. He added that Russian nuclear doctrine does not envisage any scenarios for potential strikes which would apply to Moscow's military goals in Ukraine. Nevertheless, Zaitsev added that any provocations whatsoever can be expected from Ukraine and the West, and the Russia has to be ready for any development in the media space and directly on the ground. His statement echoed remarks made by Russia's ambassador in Washington on Thursday. In an interview with Newsweek, Anatoly Antonov slammed what he called a flurry of blatant misrepresentation of Russian officials' statements on our country's nuclear policy. He accused top US military leaders, including the defense secretary and joint chiefs, of falsely blaming Moscow for escalating nuclear tension, calling their claims baseless and a part of propaganda campaign against Russia in response to the steps taken to neutralize threats to our national security emanating from Ukrainian territory. He also blamed the wider Western Bloc for what he called its irresponsible handling of the situation in Ukraine, implying that NATO's rhetoric and continuing support for Kyiv contributed to heightening nuclear tensions. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov and Russia's parliamentary speaker both asserted this week that Moscow would not use nuclear weapons first.